Hey there, this is Malorian again, and we got another kind of Paintisode, Welshisode here, because I am here with Terry from Wales, the Welsh team captain for the WTC, and we have a couple of things we're going to talk about. Probably a few things like, what you Welsh guys are doing over there, and maybe talk about some Bradigus and Stones and stuff, but we'll see. It should be fun. So, Terry, do you want to introduce yourself again?
Hey, it's nice to be on again. Thanks for having me.
So I guess it's jumping into one of the biggest things people are talking about, shifting stones. What's kind of the word over there? What are your thoughts on that?
So, so for anyone who's kind of been locked away in a box and hasn't heard, it was the February errata from PP came out probably about 3 or 4 days ago now,
Something like that, yeah.
and the basics of it is that shifting stones can now only a unit or sorry, start again a model can only be teleported once by shifting stones in a turn,
Mhm.
rather than essentially an unlimited amount of times, which is either two or in Bradigus' case three. And sorry, I was just cleaning my brush. And here it's been really kind of hotly debated and discussed. I think it's really interesting. Um, I wasn't expecting it. I don't think a lot of people here were.
No.
And the kind of the initial reaction, I think, from a lot of people, myself included, was the gearbox is broken, so we decided to change the brake pads.
Mhm.
It was a bit strange. Having had a few days to kind of sit on it and kind of gather other people's opinions, I think it could be, in hindsight, it could be a really good decision. I think.
All right.
Um, I kind of felt like it was it was a shame when it came out. I thought, oh nah, this is the thing that kind of defines Circle. They have all this maneuverability, and they don't have a lot of range. So being able to teleport a beast across the table was Circle's sort of ranged attack, as it were, and that got nerfed. Nobody likes having their things nerfed. So it's kind of like a lot of the Circle players are a bit dead in the dumps, and then everybody who hates playing against Circle is really happy.
I'm thrilled in a way, like yeah.
Yeah, I bet you are. I mean, I'm glad they made a change. Bradigus was, you know, I mean, there've been meta bending casters released before,
Mhm.
um, but the Bradigus thing was just really out of hand. And you know, when you have P Scar, who is camping 12 in the corner of the kill box, and Bradigus isn't even in the kill box yet, and he can still get to here, and have more than a 50-50 chance of killing here.
Mhm.
Something had to happen. And it's good to see that PP have recognised that relatively early. Um, I do feel like maybe I'm being a bit too cynical, but I feel like it was a bit of a reactionary errata in that why didn't they do it before they released Brad? I guess.
Yeah. Now here's a thing that a lot of the circle guys are saying around here is that they agree that this is probably something that was done because reactionary because of Bradigus, but at the end of the day, it hurts Circle more than it hurts Bradigus. I mean, one of the guys in particular was saying that he is really big into loving playing Kruger 2, and this really hurts Kruger 2, whereas for Bradigus, I mean, sure, your threat is a little bit reduced, but he still has a really long threat, and all of his regular tricks still work, right? I mean, it's not like the cloud stopped working or any of that type of stuff, right? So it almost seems like instead of really taking down Bradigus, all of Circle was really kind of taken down, and Bradigus is still kind of left at the top of the heap. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think before the errata, Bradigus was, I think, by far and away, obviously his tier list was the most competitive build from any faction, any caster. And now I think he's been brought down to the same level, perhaps, as E. Haley, squeaky, gaspy. You know, that I think he's now at that level where he is still extremely powerful, very, very good. Anybody who's now thinking of selling all of their wolds because of this should probably think again, because he's still awesome, absolutely awesome. And you're right, I think it hurts. I think it hurts Kruger too, really bad, and I think it hurts Chromac as well, which are two of the top four circle casters. So yeah,
Now,
it's a bit of a mixed bag.
so as a Crix player on your side, has this errata changed what your build will be for your anti-circle?
I'm pretty much sticking with what I had pre errata. My sort of best efforts to counter Bradigus is playing Scar One and making sure that I out threat the Wolves, which is fairly simple because they can walk up 5 and push, or they can charge, which is 8. Obviously, they can be teleported,
Mhm.
which is not really a lot you can do about. But so my Scar build is all the Weapon Masters and feet in your face, and try and sort of get the alpha and kill perhaps half, if I'm lucky, if it goes really well. Kill about half of the wolves. That way you can't get synergy up high enough. That's basically that's basically what I'm going to do. What I'm going to try.
Mhm. So it really hasn't really changed your tactics or list at all then very much.
Not mine, because my build sort of doesn't go down the route of what most anti-Bradius builds do, which is to be able to snipe stones.
Mhm.
When you do that, it's obviously a good idea to be able to do that, but when you do that and your opponent sees it, and they see that you've got like this kind of anti-Bradius tech, whatever that might be, then he just drops Kruger 2 in your face, all your shooting is busted,
Yeah.
and you're kind of back to square one, where you're playing a match against Circle 1 and it's all uphill.
Yeah, because I know that's been some of the argument on that side is that if this was really a blow to Bradigus, it would have really changed your list of how what you're going to be using as your anti-circle. But it seems that from what I'm hearing from most people, their anti-circle list isn't really changing at all, and that the only real tactics that are changing is that now they feel safer to get their caster farther up.
Yeah, now you can get further up the board, you can get into the kill box, you can get onto a zone or a flag, and be relatively aware of what the threat ranges are,
Mm-hmm.
which is still pretty good, but you don't have to stay right at the back of the board.
Cowering in fear.
Yeah, I mean, when we played Blood and Oil, which was back in November, I think it was about 5 of the top 10 in like a 64 player format played Bradigus.
Mm-hmm.
I was just after the tier list had dropped, and it was just insane. I mean, you're talking, turn one, Bradigus moves forward. Oh right, okay, it's my turn one. I'll just move forward a little bit. Turn two, you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's not a nice play experience for anyone.
You figure though a big part of that, I mean, you hear all those type of stories, but you think a massive part of that isn't so much Bradigus as much as this nobody knew about the Bradigus. I mean, the same going say with Butcher 3, where the first tournaments after he came out, it's just like, yeah, turn 2 I got assassinated because I moved up too far and I didn't realize the threat.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, and I've said from the start that it's kind of Newcaster syndrome, and there'll be a lot of gotchas, and especially with a Bradigus or a Butcher 3 type caster, and I think I mean the delivery is different, but the idea is still the same. It's like I will come right across the board and I will assassinate you. And
Yeah.
when you do have that kind of caster or that kind of warlock that's released, inevitably there's going to be people caught in the crossfire. They haven't read the rules. They don't quite understand how it works. So there's a little bit of that, but I think mostly with Gragas, it's not just the threat range. It's the fact that you can't you can't block it. It's really difficult. I mean, you're talking about putting like 2 or 3 concentric circles around your caster, having to play completely different to how your list would normally play. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Bradigus was broken.
Yeah, because you had the, you got the clouds to deal with and the shield guards, and it was more the layers upon the layers, like you say.
Everything, I mean, even without synergy, everything synergizes really well. The forests, the shield guard, all that is just, it just kind of completely obliterates any kind of anti-shooting sort of tech.
Hmm. So yeah, so with that change now, over in your meta, who do you say are the three biggest boogeymen in your meta? Like the three casters that you worry the most about when you go to a tournament?
Okay, as a Crix player, um, I really hate playing against Lilith 2.
Mm-hmm.
I played a game against Lilith 2 on Sunday, and I played my P Scar into it because my other drop is P Denny that doesn't play at the Legion very well at all. So I dropped P Scar, and I've played against this player and I've played against this build a number of times, and inevitably, by the time I get to him, I've got like three dudes left.
Okay.
I played on Sunday, and I think I ended up making four melee attacks in the whole game. Um, I just got blown off the board. I hate playing against Lilith too. It's so hard. So I think for me personally, she's my boogeyman at the moment. I don't think she's particularly broken or anything. I mean, she's fine. It's just my two list pairing really struggles against it. So Lilith two. I think obviously Bradigus. There's only one player actually in my local meta who is playing Bradigus, so I guess I'm quite lucky
You're
in that.
lucky. Everyone's gonna be moving to your place right now.
Yeah. Nobody really jumped on the bandwagon. There was one player that was already kind of picking up some circle as Bradigus was released. So I mean, obviously you have to be aware of him and watch lots of videos on him and kind of play against him in tournaments and that sort of thing. But in just kind of local casual games,
Mm-hmm.
Bradius isn't a concern because he just doesn't get played so much. You kind of see that one player with his Bradius kind of getting out on the table, and you avoid him and go and sit with somebody else. Uh, I think E Haley as well. Uh, E Haley is obviously really difficult to play against. Um, and I actually my third one is I think this year is going to be a good year for Epic Grim. I
Oh,
think
okay.
there's a few players that have been playing the new Highwayman with
Mm-hmm.
him. Pew pew pew, two shots each. Like kind of snipe on his feet turn, that kind of thing. Uh, I think once they kind of figure out what their build is going to be, I think Grim 2 is going to have a lot of play against Quicks. So I think that's something to kind of be aware of.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of talk about how Gunbjorn even's going to come back because of the Highwaymen.
Yeah, one of my good buddies at my local club plays Trolls. Um, well, actually, two of my buddies at club play Trolls, and one of them is kind of predicting this Gunbjorn resurgence. I'm leaning more towards Grim 2, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a feeling that there's maybe in the next book you might see Epic Gunbjorn,
Ooh.
maybe, and that could be a thing. Um, yeah, Gunbjorn's good. I find generally though his builds are better at taking out higher value targets. So you kind of you have your Dozer and Smig and the Blitzers and the Bombers and that sort of thing. Um, yeah, good at taking out higher value targets, but they kind of struggle against all your stealth and some of your kind of defensive tech. Whereas I think Grim 2 has got answers. He's got answers to a lot of that with the Mage Sight AoE and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing.
And you
So
can
that's
get
his.
double rock wall as well, eh? Between Janissa and him.
Oh, Janissa. That's why I play Nis.
Yeah. So maybe that's a good one to talk about. You're saying, well, what's going to be in the next book? But we also had the announcement about all the second wave of colossals. And that
Yeah,
was a big surprise to me, seeing that, hey, I'm going to get an Arc now colossal. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
What do you think of the Crix one?
It's difficult to tell. I mean, they were a bit cagey on exactly how it works, and I think its success will be based on how it collects corpses, whether it does it kind of passively, whether it is competing for corpses with, for example, a necrosurgeon. On the face of it, just knowing what we know, it seems like a really expensive necrosurgeon and stitch stores, but
Mm.
I'm sure it'll kind of have a place. I think the general idea would be it will sit behind a big unit of mechanic rolls, brute rolls, that kind of thing, and hopefully just kind of like squirt them out of this gun. Yeah, if it collects them passively, like if it has to rely on
Healing
killing
himself,
a
yeah.
living model in melee to collect the corpses, then I think it probably won't be very good. But if it has some kind of maybe, I don't know, a bubble, any living model that dies within X amount of inches, this kind of model gains a corpse token, it can use that corpse token to spit out a mechanical, probably 2 corpse tokens to spit out a brute roll, I would imagine. Um, then I think it'll be very, very interesting. And I'm kind of, yeah, I'm a little bit excited.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's also some talks about whether how they are actually going to be put back into play. I mean, some are even wondering if they'll come back as solos, right? And that can make things really interesting. Or, do you just add them to a unit? Will there be any limits on not being able to make the unit bigger than it started? Right? All these things, you don't have all these details right now. So we'll have to kind of see how these all pan out, really.
Yeah, I mean, if they all came back as solos and it was kind of like Gatsby 2's feet, but the mechanical brute roll version, that would be really interesting.
Hmm.
They would maybe need some additional rules on top. Um, I don't know. I haven't thought about that.
And then it also has 4 arms, right? So, I mean, it looks like it's going to have, 4 initial attacks, would be pretty nice. No unicorn cannon. But then the also big question is, what's the POW, right? The Kraken is known as being, for a colossal, being pillow fisted because it needs to get in those corpses first before it really strengthens up. What's going to be the POW on the secondary one, right? So,
I thought that because I've got the 2 big tentacles at the front,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
they've got tentacles coming out the sides. I thought they look like guns to me. Now I might be wrong. It's kind of difficult to tell. It doesn't,
Mm.
it's a bit Crixy. Is it a melee weapon? Is it a gun? Don't know. If it has 4 initial melee attacks and can kind of collect corpses, I assume it'll also have the 4-inch reach. I think that's probably a given.
Yeah, I'd say so.
4 initials, then you could be getting 4 up to 7 maybe corpses a turn. That would be pretty good.
Hmm. And here's another thing I'm wondering too. I mean, in some other factions, double colossals is a big deal, but you never see that with Crix. If it does have this full-on recursion, let's say just passively by being there, they pull in corpses and get to make more models. Do you think you'll actually start seeing double colossal if that's the way the recursion works?
Probably not.
No, that wouldn't be enough.
Probably not. I mean, I would like to play Double Kraken just as a kind of a bit of a funsies list.
Hmm.
I own 1 Kraken. Um, I think with the new one, I think it's probably going to add grunts to existing units. So running 2 of the new Jack probably means you don't have enough points to fill out the rest of the list because you probably need to take 2 units of mechanicals. Okay, they're cheap, 3 or 5 points.
Stitch
I'm
stalls.
I'm going to assume for the sake of conversation that you wouldn't need the necrosurgeon and stitch thralls. So I mean, immediately you're talking, let's say they're 19 points, they're going to be close to that. They might be a point either side. It's 38 points. plus, say, 2 max units of mechanicals, that's 48 points. So already you've kind of used up
Hmm.
most. Maybe, but I don't think the double will be a thing. I think you're probably talking like a single behind a unit of mechanicals, uh, and it'll essentially run like a necrosurgeon and a stitch rolls. But hey, PP, they're really creative. They always come out with lots of cool ideas. It's going to have a number of angles and ways to play it, I think.
Hmm.
I hope.
Yeah, I know as far as the Signar one goes, I'm starting to have some plans for that already too, right? For Signar, it can be a lot more common to run double Stormwall, and just making one of those or Hurricane instead, that can really change the way that it works. And all of a sudden you don't need to be, if we're talking about one of the Haleys, maybe you don't need to take Thorn or Lancer, and then all of a sudden that opens up other points. And that's a whole nother question too, is that on none of these, they didn't leak any of the points. So are they going to be the same, or are they going to be lower? And just a change of a point or two could be a big deal as well.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be within a point of uh, the existing colossal, either a point more, point less, or equal. I think the Signar one sounds fantastic because the the argument has always been, for example, with E Haley, do I take an arc node? Do I take a storm wall? Now you've kind of got that all in one neat package. Oh, I don't have to take a Lancer or I don't have to take Thorn anymore. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be, Stormwall Hurricane or possibly even double Hurricane depending on how good it is. And that's really scary because the last thing we need is for E Haley to get any better.
Well,
Um,
there's questions about how that arc node will work, right? Can you still arc node through the hurricane when it's engaged, or will it have a special way around it, just like Thorn type of thing?
I think you'll probably be able to arc through it when it's engaged. I would imagine so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. That's the assumption, but then again, that's not how it's normally done. So you know, all of a sudden if that changes, well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to keep a colossal unengaged sometimes, especially when it's key. But still, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if the worst comes to the worst and you can't arc through it if it's engaged, then it's just one of those things where you're just going to have to get spells out, keep bits and pieces out earlier on in the game, and it won't be used as that kind of spell slinging platform. It'll just be used kind of passively to pass out, your buffs and things like that,
Hmm. And
which
this is where I
Signar
think it's going to
leads
be great
towards,
with. Sorry?
and that's what Signar leads towards anyway. I mean, there's not really a lot of spell slinging. It's more just kind of passing out the buffs.
Hmm.
General rule of thumb.
This is where I'm thinking it's going to be best with P. Haley because, with her barrier there, she can keep things away from it. And then all of a sudden you're using it to arc chain lightning and great stuff there. Now,
Uh,
do you think it's too early for a second colossal? Like, were you disappointed it wasn't something else?
um, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I think for me, listening to the keynote speech, whether or not you read too much into it is probably up for debate. But the suggestion was that, oh, we're bringing out these colossals which are on the same chassis, but perhaps in the future there will be new colossals on a different chassis
Hmm.
because most factions have kind of two different chassis, don't they, for their heavies? And I think colossals could go the same way, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. I know one of the things that I heard about that I was kind of more excited for was colossals with actual weapons, right? Because pretty much all the ones now are all the open fist 2-inch reach. You know, all of a sudden if you have a colossal with like a massive storm blade type thing, it has 4-inch reach. Maybe all of a sudden it goes up to 22 points or something. But there's something that operates a lot differently. Like, do you figure that these colossals are? I mean, we don't know all the rules yet, so it's hard to say. But do you figure that these, because they're on the same chassis and seem to be relatively the same colossal idea, like, do you feel that they're not different enough?
There could be an element of that, definitely. It's hard to balance the game, make them playable, and make them different at the same time because I think experience tells us that the best colossals are the ranged colossals. Um, which one of the reasons you don't see a lot of the gargantuans and colossals played is because they have 1, 2 ranged attacks, whereas your storm walls and your earthbreakers are like like a minimum of like 4 or 5 shots.
Mm.
I think a good colossal almost certainly has to have a ranged game. A colossal is not the kind of thing that you tend to put out in the front of your army and be like that melee beat stick. There are a few exceptions. I think obviously Haley is one of them with her feet. That can kind of lock you out of melee for a turn. But yeah, I mean, if they made melee focused colossals, that would be pretty cool. But I think it would be tough, and they would have to have some kind of way of chewing through layers of infantry to make it worth it. So you're talking, colossals with sidestep or, you know, something, kind of being able to kind of like push dudes out the way as they kind of like out the way. Rah!
Yeah. Well, I
Gaster.
mean, specifically that's what they really thought for the mammoth at first, right? When they heard the rules for the mammoth, they're like, oh yeah, it's going to get in there, use bulldoze, and just destroy whatever it wants. And that's not really how you see it played. I mean, you hardly see it at all. And when you do, it's more staying back as a gun platform and being a late piece, as opposed to the get in there and bulldoze type of combat machine they thought it was going to be at first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really excited now. We've got SmogCon this weekend coming, which
Yeah.
is the biggest convention in the UK. It's sort of a Europe-wide convention that we get sort of foreigners coming as well. So I'm looking forward now to the keynote speech at SmogCon. I think most people are assuming that the speech is going to be gargantuans. I think
Hmm.
that is going to be really, really tough to get that right because I think colossals, for the most part, are a success and they see the table. Gargantuans, apart from the mammoth, basically don't get played because of the way the focus and the fury mechanic works in hordes. Generally speaking, having 2 heavy war beasts, 8 fury is better than having 1 gargantuan with 4 or 5 fury.
Hmm.
So I think that's going to be the most difficult one to balance. Is if they do bring gargantuans out, they have to make the gargantuan playable without kind of making it necessarily and obviously overpowered in comparison to the previous gargantuans. That's going to be really difficult.
So what's your bet then? Are we going to get a minion gargantuan?
No,
No.
that's
Oh.
what I'm going for. I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, who doesn't want to see a giant crocodile? That's awesome. Um, but they've just had the battle engines drop. Seems like it would like be almost too good for the minion players. They'd all fall over. Too
But
excited. But I hope they
this is
do.
what they
Obviously,
need, right?
they brought the convergence one out.
Yeah.
Convergence is all right. It's not mercs, but it is. I don't think that was expected. So maybe that would be cool. I mean, I guess we would be talking about a giant gator on one side. I think that the Pharaoh version would be really like conceptually. I'm not sure what they would bring out. Would it be a giant pig? Does that kind of work? Would it be like? I'm thinking it would be like a load of giant pigs all kind of sewn together, like
Yeah.
sort of Skaven kind of Pharaoh. Arcadius has been at the alcohol too much, and
Yeah.
it's kind of pitched a load of beasts together.
Something crazy. I mean, that's why I was almost wondering if this is where they bring together the two and say, okay, we have a minion gargantuan. It is the massive Godzilla type thing, and it works for both Thornfall and Blind Water.
Yeah, that would be really good. That would be really, really good. I don't know what it would be,
Mm.
but I think it would make sense. It would make it, certainly from a business perspective, it would make more sense. So I could see them doing that. Not that PP is kind of solely driven by sales, but I could definitely see that as a possibility.
I mean, they got to be also thinking about how whenever people talk about minions, like that's the joke faction that it's not really a faction, but between the battle engine and if they're to bring out that gargantuan as well, I mean, all of a sudden they're just up there with everybody else, right?
Yeah, and if the battle engines are anything to go by, their gargantuan would potentially be really really good because I mean a lot of people over here have been talking about the sacral vault,
Mm-hmm.
the the meat grinder, meat thresher, whatever. The
Yep.
the, the big one hasn't had a lot of discussion, but the sacral vault has had a huge amount of discussion. Uh, Not just about being used in minions, but being used in circle with Kruger 2, that kind of thing. So I think
Now,
it's exciting times. I really like minions. I've got some gators myself, which haven't seen the table for quite a while. Um, maybe it would encourage me to get them back out and kind of play those for funsies.
mhm. Now, talking about the Sacre Vault, as a Signar player, it doesn't mean anything to me because I'm just going to go pew pew and shoot it down. As a Crix player, it must be giving you nightmares. So, what's kind of your game plan right now for dealing with
It's really scary. Uh,
it?
Luckily, my P Denny build is very shooty. I've got a Nis in there. I've got the Boom Howlers. I've got like a Pistol Wraith. All the Venoms and the Defiler cannons and that kind of thing. I think I could shoot it down. The problem is that if it's like with Rask or something and you've got a turn of no shooting,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as it gets into your lines and you've all got all those single wound models, you're screwed. So I haven't played against it yet. I've read through its rules. I'm kind of familiar with it. I think it's gonna be a real challenge for Quicks players. It's going to be a real challenge for any sort of dude spam list. Of course it is.
I was just thinking, would it also work well with Barnabas and just say like making your pool and putting it inside and say, well, you just can't target it at all? Would that interaction work?
Is Barnabas is it's a 5-inch ring, isn't it?
Yeah.
His swamp. So yeah, I can't remember if a battle engine can be. Hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
know for the interaction for Siege, it works perfect where I can put my foxhole right on a colossal or gargantuan and be able to see right through it. So if it works there, you'd think it'd work for Barnabas's little swamps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be pretty good. I'm just thinking, what is the speed of the sacral vault? Because Barnabas's AoEs have to go down where there are no models, right?
Yep,
So you
yep.
put it down right in front of the sacral vault, and then if it has a speed of 5, it can advance and be kind of perfectly in it.
Yep.
Is it speed 5 or speed 4?
I don't know what the speed of the battle engine is.
I'm not sure. So if it can advance, get into the swamp, and then shoot all its guns, that's going to be really really good. If it has to run to get in there, obviously turn 1, that's fine. Turn 2 onwards, then it's probably going to be
Mhm.
not played.
And then all of a sudden, I mean, if we're talking about Barnabas, then all of a sudden you could Iron Flesh the thing too, right?
Yeah. Like defense 10 or something, goes up to defense 13. Hey, that can miss. That can
Yeah.
definitely miss.
It's all about that gator jank, right?
Yeah, my stupid Dougal McNeil, he misses and he's rat 7.
Yeah.
Like rat 9 on peak turn.
So I hear you're preparing for a Masters over there or something?
Yeah, so SmogCon starts on Friday morning and runs through till Sunday night. If last year's event is anything to go by, then it's going to be absolutely amazing and really, really tiring as well. We went last year. There was a group of us that drove down from Wales. The event now is held in and around London. This year it's at
Okay.
Heathrow Airport. So yeah, last year we went down. We went down on the Thursday night, came back on the Sunday night, and I think I had about 3 hours sleep for the whole event.
Oh no.
Oh, it was like it was really messy. By the end, there were some really tired eyes. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be a really good event. There's a Masters on the Sunday. There are a number of qualifier events um, Friday and Saturday. I think there were three. I'm signed up for one of them. I'm hoping to get into the Masters, but it's not guaranteed, obviously.
Hmm.
And there's loads of casual play, loads of kind of like Midnight Madness events. They're always pretty fun, where you start at midnight and then sort of round three, round four is kind of like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Everybody's really tired, making mistakes,
Yeah.
but they're more casual and kind of fun events they are. So I'm looking forward to a good combination of competitive play, hanging out with my buddies, playing some fun games. It's going to be really, really good.
Now, are you a little bit disappointed with the change to Masters not being three list anymore?
Um, a little bit. I think what the three list format did was, okay, you take your two list format, the two casters that I would play for that, and then my third one I'm going to stick in something fun or something that solves the single problem that my other two lists can't solve.
Hmm.
So it's kind of it's a shame that you won't see those kind of fun, janky kind of builds that you would have seen in a three list pairing. Um, but I think what it does is that it forces you to. Now, let me think about that again. It kind of. I'm not really sure what I want to say about it. But I don't know. Pass. Pass over to you. I've lost my train
Okay.
of thought, sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe a quick thing to set up my part is the ADR portion used in your area? Do people actually use those four casters?
Not yet. There has been a lot of kind of discussion over it. Some of them, I think some of the players are quite positive towards it. Um, Me personally, I'm not using it at the moment. I may consider it a bit kind of later on down the road, see how it plays out, see what the
Hmm.
next round of casters is, see what the new quicks release is. Um, I think you will see quite a bit of it. I think it really helps some factions. I think, for example, a good example is Trolls, where they have a lot of solos that they can bring in that don't usually see the table, that they can now have in that ADR format, that will help them with their more difficult matchups. I'm thinking things like the Sorcerer. He's like 1 point. He can
Yep.
strip. He can strip like keep spells and stuff like that. So I think it'll really help some factions. I think it'll help all factions, and it'll be good. I really like that PP have thought carefully about right which casters are not getting played, why are they not getting played. Here's an idea. Let's try it. Let's see if it works.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean, where I was going to go for our side here is that ADR is actually really popular, and in fact, people like it so much that you're seeing that uh, I would say the majority of tournaments are just, hey, it's Steamroller with ADR, which really means it's Masters. And so, whereas before, Masters was a separate, format, whereas like, yeah, this is really show that you have mastery over the faction. Now it's really just your regular Steamroller, but no, it's ADR. I really wish ADR had been a variant for Steamroller, and then Masters would have stayed with three lists. But I mean, that's because over here ADR is really popular, whereas it sounds in your area there nobody's really touching it so far.
Yeah, a little bit with Trials, a little bit with Retribution as well. You've got Vyros 1 and Ran, I think, that are ADR casters. I
Hmm.
think that pairing is pretty good, especially in the current meta. I think Vyros plays potentially quite well into things like Bradigus. So there are a few people that have kind of taken the baton and started to run with it, but it's early days for us guys here. I think I think most players are kind of preparing for SmogCon, and haven't had a lot of time to experiment, especially with like the WTC selection events that we've had as well.
Hmm.
So it's kind of been people have been playing their tried and tested stuff, and I think ADR is something that will develop over the course of this year.
Kind of
Excuse me.
funny though, especially with like say convergence, where it's like, well, you just can't use LeConte. You know, out of all your casters, you basically use any of them. Just don't use LeConte, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And minions getting like pretty much all the bear guys as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's good because I think the ADR then helps to balance for the smaller factions in that the vast majority of their casters of their warlocks are getting this benefit.
Now, here's another interesting thing I was wondering about with the ADR. So, from our understanding, the way that ADR works is that Privateer Press looks at their major events and says which are the most least used casters. Well, the four top least used casters are the ADR list. And every 6 months, we'll reevaluate and release that list. So, using that logic, that means that players could actually game the system so that leading up to the biggest masters of the year, well, okay, all Signar players don't play Haley 2 and don't play Siege, so that they make it on the ADR. And I mean, when I did 40K in Fantasy and they had these big global campaigns, you would see this where they have it on the forums where the world is working together saying, okay, everybody attack here. We're going after this planet, and we're going to break the system to make this work. And I'm just wondering, like, if you actually will see that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it would be good to have Haley not played for a whole year. It would almost be worth it.
Well, a half year, you know.
Yeah, I don't think PP will base it solely off the data that they receive from tournaments. Um, or at least I hope they won't, because then, like you said, I mean, the system could potentially be gamed, and then yeah, you end up with Haley 2, Kane 2, Siege, all on the ADR list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
I don't
mean,
think it will happen.
I guess if they are, if Privateer Press is evaluating it themselves, just trying to decide what should be there as opposed to using something more mathematical. But the other thought is maybe they're doing either a draw or a rotating list, and then that would mean if that's the case, then you would be seeing Haley and Kane 2 and so forth making the list anyway. So I actually hope that they are taking it mathematically from tournaments, but at the same time, that opens it up to people working the system.
Yeah, maybe you'll see one at a time. If you see Haley 2, you won't see Kane 2. If you see Haley 2, you won't see Siege. They might do it one at a time, and it
Mhm.
provided that all factions like simultaneously get their kind of one of their top casters on the list, it then essentially is balanced. Because if Signar get Haley 2 and Crix get Denny 2 or Gatsby 2 and then Kador get Sorsha or something,
Mhm.
then essentially it kind of balances between all the factions.
Now, what do you think about this idea? If they were to keep, let's say we're into 2016 now, Privateer Press is trying to reevaluate how to do masters. Do you think it would work if they go back to a three-list masters, but then still say that if two of them are from that ADR list, then you get that sideboard for those ADR casters? Think that format could work?
Yeah, I don't see why not. You can then take one powerful build, um, Yeah, and then to have ADR, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
All right, Terry. Let's hand the driving wheel over to you there. What's the thing on your mind right now that you want to be talking about?
I was actually going to ask you about your WTC selection. What lists you currently playing? How is that going? I know you've had the sort of the interview kind of process.
Hmm.
Um, just thought I'd ask you how that's going.
Well, things are still kind of silent here. On February 13th, that was the last time that you could actually apply for the Team Canada. So that's come and gone. And right now, we haven't heard back from anything there. So the council that we set up is now evaluating, and I don't know at what point they're going to start getting people for second interviews. But as of right now, my understanding is that nobody has been told. Now, what's the deadline to actually have the full team in?
Deadline is around about April, I think. But that seems like it would be, especially for you guys, where you kind of have to book flights. There's a lot of money involved in a Canadian team coming across the pond. I would have thought you would have had it sorted sooner rather than later. If you're
Mm-hmm.
having the interview process now, then I can't imagine it would be too long. Certainly, I would be talking a maximum of weeks rather than months, surely.
And that's really been kind of a surprising way that this has been developing, is that I really did think it was going to be fast, fast, fast. They're going to try and figure out the teams right away, and let you have enough time to plan, like you said, for not only going out there and setting up your flights, but also for that more talk of, okay, these are the players that we have. Let's figure out what's going to be the best combos and blah blah blah. But it's really been kind of a slow and steady approach.
Yeah, I mean the important thing is that Team Canada makes good decisions, and if those good decisions take a little bit longer, that's absolutely fine.
Hmm. So I don't know. I mean, uh, we were talking before we went live about how I've really derped up my last steamroller. Um, so some plays like that have made me start wondering whether it's going to hurt my chances. But then again, I'm really just needing to be the one of the top Signar players, because I know I got told that they really want to have a Signar player on each team. So there you go. There's plenty of players out there that I know will kick my butt, but they're all circle. And I mean, you can only have one circle on each team. So if there's 100 players better than me, but they all play circle, well, that's fine. I just need to care about just the Signar players. But yeah, I gotta make sure I up that game a little bit more.
I
And
have a
one of
feeling that this year we might see a team. I don't know which team it will be, but you might see a team that kind of overloads on one, maybe two factions. I think that's really quite interesting. The general thought previously has been, oh, we've got to take one Signar, we've got to take one Legion, we've got to take one Circle, blah, blah, blah.
the,
Um, I think you might see 5 Quicks players, or you might see 5 Signar players.
could be, yeah.
So
I
how
know
many
those.
people, have put themselves up for the WTC team for Canada?
What's that? Sorry.
So how many players are trying to get on the team for Canada?
So I didn't get what the very last number was, but we have two teams, and the last I heard was about 20-ish players that had applied for it. So, right there, it's a 50-50 coin flip, if nothing else. But again, a lot of them are not Signar players, right? I would expect that there's probably 3 of those are Signar players. So if I'm just better than one guy, that's all I need.
So we won't be seeing Malloy at the WTC. Boo!
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. That makes it really tough. From my own perspective, having just gone through the selection process, uh, I had it where we had about 15 players that we were selecting from, and it took a while to get down to 11 players. Probably a good half an hour's like kind of serious, intense discussion between myself and the chairman of the team.
Hmm.
And then it got down to 11 players, and then just kind of like bang, hit a wall, and like all 11 players can legitimately go. There's no right or wrong answer, and one person is going to miss out and kind of, well, that person now is going to be our alternate. Just in case anyone has to drop, we have a person that can come in and replace them kind of straight away, and he's cool with that. And that's I'm really grateful for that, because it's hard selecting a team, because I mean inevitably, there are politics involved. Everybody wants to go. Everyone's really passionate.
Yeah.
Somebody has to miss out, and I felt it was important to kind of speak to people and just talk them through the process a little bit of how I saw things in terms of selection, and hopefully make it so that people understand, even if they don't necessarily agree or if they're a little bit disappointed, they understand A, if they've been selected, why they've been selected, and then B, if they haven't been selected, kind of maybe one or two of the things they might need to work on. So that's a conversation I'd like to have with a couple of people when I see them next. And then also, if you're on Team B, hey, why didn't I make Team A?
Oh
And,
yeah.
and from my perspective is, well, that's your chance to prove us all wrong. Is that, if you do really well at Team B, then you're making it really, really hard next time to not be selected for Team A.
As far as I'm concerned, Team A, Team B, it's all you made the team. So that part
Yeah,
doesn't.
that's my thinking as well. I mean, my thoughts are exactly the same as yours. Hey, if I'm on either team, I'm going to go, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to represent my country, with like my flag on my chest and look at me, I'm playing for my country. I don't care if I would be in Team A or Team B personally. But there are some people that, oh, I feel I'm in the top 5 players in Wales, and I should therefore be in Team 1. I think there is a couple of people that feel like that. Totally fine. Um, so you've got to kind of manage people's expectations, really.
Mm.
But I think we've got a good team. I think we're under no illusions. We're not going to be going as the favourites. We probably won't be going as any sort of like kind of underdog favourites either. But I think we have some good players. If we play well, the WTC format is such that so that if you win 3 games, you win your round and you're through. Um, so as long as you've got 3 good matchups, as long as you've got 3 good players, you can essentially do well.
Yeah. Now, that's something else I was wanting to talk about is where, like you were saying, like the idea of going with like, hey, we're going to take 5 Crix players or any of that type of stuff. I mean, that's really like a deeper level strategy that you need to really work out. So, like in your part there, where okay, we have 11 people, it might not be who are the 10 best. It's more like what overall strategy we're going to go for, who plays what faction, and then at the same time, you had it where for the Team USA, they were putting it down to the vote, and the players would actually then vote for who's going to make the team. Do you feel that, I mean, where you brought up politics, do you feel that that's a good way to kind of answer the politics so it's really more just open to everyone? Or is it best for, say, like the committee to make those choices?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've learned through this selection process is that the selection process for next year's WTC will be more objective. We'll be looking at tournament results. We'll be looking at rankings. There is a UK rankings website called Tiebreak, and
Okay.
what I would like to see is that, hey, if you're not ranked on Tiebreak, if you haven't been to ranking tournaments, or if you missed out on some of the big tournaments, you haven't attended, if your ranking suffers, then you're less likely to make it onto the team. I
Yeah, and
think
that's
that'll
fair
be
enough. I mean, one of the issues we have with trying to do something like that here in Canada is the whole idea where, going to any con, whether it be a lock and load or whatever, is a big expense, right? So you could have a lot of players that, hey, guess what? I just don't have a few extra $1,000 to throw each year to go to cons, and that's kind of a problem. Like for myself, one thing that's going to hinder me for this year is that the money I was going to use to go to lock and load, instead I bought 25 frontline gaming mats so that I can run my big Alberta Masters. So it's like, you know, you have to make those tough financial choices, which can be totally separate than what it'd be for like, okay, the finance put aside to go over to Ireland, right?
Yeah, costs, you know, especially for you guys where, you know, the top players are quite spread.
Hmm.
You know, Canada's a big country. It's a
Yeah.
little bit bigger than Wales. It's a little bit bigger than England. So, you know, we're quite fortunate in that, you know, a lot of the Scottish players, a lot of the Irish players, a lot of the English players, a lot of the Welsh players, we get to play in the big tournaments together. So there are, you know, there is a UK meta. Um, so we can be ranked on a UK system. You know, ranking things for you guys would be a little bit more difficult. You've got the East, you've got the West, you know, and the two, I'm guessing, don't meet that often.
Hmm.
So yeah, it presents a real challenge for bigger countries. And I think, you know, America's model of, you know, these are the players that are available. Now let's all vote on those players. I think it works for them because inevitably they have, you know, hundreds of players that can vote that wouldn't necessarily be available or be, you know, kind of competitive enough to be selected. Whereas in a small country like Wales, we've probably got, you know, 30 or 40 regular players, and we had about 15 that expressed, you know, interest in going. There's not a lot of people left that can vote, that aren't already kind of up for selection. So that system doesn't quite work for us yet,
Hmm.
but maybe in the future.
Well, do you feel though that that can turn it so that's not so much that you're voting for who's best, you're voting just more like for popularity, right? I mean, right there, I mean, when you had Trevor from Chain Attack that was part of the vote, I was actually sure that he was going to win just because of the whole Trevor Blight thing that was going on, and you're like, oh boy, I mean, like he's a great player, but is he just going to get like 90% of the vote just because hey, he's a Chain Attack guy and go Trevor Blight? Like, do you feel that with the politics involved, that that could actually be an issue, where it could actually be bad to do the voting structure?
Definitely. You know, people kind of lobbying for votes and all this sort of thing that could go on. Yeah, that's potentially that is ripe for abuse, really. So I think first and foremost, you have to be clear with the reasons for which people can get on the team. So is it based just on results? Is it based on which factions you play? Is it based on, you know, whether we think you'll be a good ambassador for the country? Me
Hmm.
personally, I think it should be based on those things and a number of other things as well. So there always has to be like a combination. You know, I wouldn't be up for a system which just said, right, these are the top 10 Welsh players based on the rankings. Those players go
Hmm.
because, you know, there are a number of, you know, subtle kind of nuances. You might have somebody who's a really top player who hasn't been able to go to tournaments this year because his wife's just had a baby or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. How's your painting coming along?
I'm actually done.
Cool.
So I was painting these little Saxons or Norse or whatever um, that are part of that game. I did a Pinasode at 8 o'clock my time as well, just for those who might have not known or
Okay.
remembered that this was going to be later. But I got started there and just finished them up. So I got four guys like this, just put on the wash, and then do some flock on the base, and that's done. And
Cool. I
unfortunately,
don't
after
know if
that,
you'll be able to see what I've been doing, but I haven't been painting because it's way too early in the morning here to be painting. It's just gone 7:15 here. So I think we started at 6-ish, didn't we? Just after 6. But I've been putting stuff on bases. Oh, that's a little bit bright. Anyway, there's some flocky, bushy kind of stuff on my Bane Knights there. Bane
Mhm.
Cab even. That might be better. And I've just been kind of doing that for all my dudes. Got Dougal here. I actually painted Dougal on one of your paintisodes about a week or
Okay.
two ago. There's Dougal.
Mhm.
Say hello, Dougal. Um, so yeah, just kind of menial tasks, getting ready. I kind of made the commitment that I would play everything painted at SmogCon.
Hmm?
So I only have a few things left to paint, and I've got the Nis, Max Nis, that are almost done, and that's the last thing I have to paint get ready for SmogCon.
Nice. On the topic of painting, locally, this has been a big topic again where should you be fully painted for a tournament? Should it be a requirement? Blah, blah, blah. What's the best way that you figure tournaments should be encouraging painting? Should it actually be enforced? Should it be an award program? What do you feel for that?
I think forcing painted armies will end up um, reducing the amount of players at a tournament, which is the last thing we want to do. You know, it's a growing game, it's a growing scene. You know, tournaments are getting bigger, they're getting more frequent. We want to encourage big tournaments. I like to see painted armies. I like to see things that are painted across the board. So I think probably the best way to go is to encourage rather than to force.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that you encourage it is by having a good deal of the prize support dedicated to painting. So painted best miniature, painted best kind of large base, huge base, small base, all that kind of thing. Painted army. Um, Maybe spot prizes for painting. I'm not quite
Now you're
sure.
saying like a good chunk of the prize support. Let's say you had $1,000 of prize support. Like what percentage would you say should go towards the painting side? Like 30%, 50%, 20%? What are you thinking there?
I think it depends on the size of the tournament. Certainly a big tournament like a 64 or 128, you can have, $100, $200, that kind of prize range. I think it obviously has to be balanced because you want people to be rewarded for a number of things. Most of the big tournaments I've been to, the Welsh Masters is really good at it. The press ganger that we have makes sure that every aspect of the hobby is rewarded. So
Hmm?
you get a prize for coming through the door. Here you go, have some dice. You get you get a prize for best in faction. You get a prize for coming last. The wooden spoon prize,
Yeah.
and yeah, you get a prize for painting, and a prize obviously for winning, and so the prize support is evenly spread throughout people who favour different aspects of the hobby.
Hmm. All right. Well, fair enough. All right. Well, we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes here. For me, that means it's already tomorrow, and so I should probably get into bed pretty soon. Was there any last thing you want to talk about?
No, I think you should get yourself off to bed, but it would be nice to come back sometime after SmogCon. I guess if we got a couple of minutes, I can take you through the lists that I'm playing and kind of matchups and stuff. But we could always save that until after SmogCon. I'm happy with that. It's not a problem at all.
Well, no. Let's I mean have the link here, so we could talk about what your lists are now, and then we can talk about how they did next time.
Cool, cool. Okay, so I am playing Scar 1 and Denegra 1.
Hmm?
My Scar list is a whole bunch of dudes. I have Max Knights, another unit of Max Bane Knights. I have the Bane Riders, Max unit. I have Max Statixis Raiders with the UA, a Max unit of Mechanithrals, and then the Necrosurgeon and Stitch Thralls, two Divers, and Scarlet Floor.
Hmm?
And that's just kind of run everything straight up the board quickly as I can, and if I'm still alive when I get there, I win. It's that kind of, if I'm really tired or if I'm a bit drunk or something, I'm going to play that list because it's quite easy to play.
Yeah.
It's I generally drop that into things like Signar and Legion, not because it's necessarily the best matchup against Signar and Legion that Crix can do, but because Denegra just kind of she really struggles against those matchups. So Scar is there as a safety net, I suppose. Feet defensively if I need to, and hope that I get there. And then the Denegra 1 list is a really fun list. I've been really enjoying playing it these last couple of months. I've tweaked little bits and pieces here, But currently it is Denegra with 2 Defilers,
Mm-hmm.
Scarlock Thrall, Max Nis, Max Boomhowlers, Wrong Iron Snapjaw, Dougal McNeil, Gorman DeWolf, Pistol Wraith, Warwick Siren, a min unit of Mechanithralls, and Necrosurgeon and Stitch Thrall. And I think that's it. So you kind of have the Boomhowlers on one side. They're
Mm-hmm.
just there to kind of die slowly. And then you've got the Nis backed up by the Mechanithralls on the other side, which is where a lot of the hard work gets done, because turn 2, turn 3, I'm hitting you with the Nis, and then turn 4, turn 5, I'm hitting you with the Mechanithralls.
Mm-hmm.
That's been working really well. It's got a lot of assassination potential. I played it on Sunday against a very, very good Crix player and managed to assassinate Gorshade 3 on turn 2. So that
Oh,
was
okay.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
So what
those.
do you think of the lists?
I mean, I'm no Crix expert or anything, but yeah, they definitely sound. I mean, Scar is always scary. Denegra is always scary. Um, one of the ones that kind of like popped my like, oh, that's in the list was Wrong Eye and Snapjaw. So you've been finding that he's been really working well with the Crix?
Yeah, the Wrong Iron Snapjaw kind of is in there for a couple of reasons. So, firstly, with the way Denegra works, is she's debuffing the enemy rather than buffing, friendly faction stuff. So
Mm.
she can sling out Parasite, she can sling out Crippling Grasp. All of a sudden, you have Snapjaw, who is effectively power and strength 20. On feet turn, he could be power and strength 22.
Yeah.
Um, so he gets a lot of work done for the amount of points that you pay. Um, and Wrong Eye is great as well. If Snapjaw dies, he's a super solo. He can take advantage of all those debuffs as well. But also, the list works off the basis that if I can run Denegra up quite aggressively, feet all over your army, then in return, on your turn, you're not going to kill a lot of my stuff because you're either not going to be able to hit because the defense of the Mist is too high.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Boomheaders have got tough. Most things in the list either have stealth or incorporeal or some kind of defensive tech that allows them to not get shot. And of course, Wrong Eye and Snapjaw play into that really, really well. Where hey, they can't even be targeted.
No, no.
And plus, all the quick jacks are really bad as well. So, as well, Denegra, she doesn't like to hand out focus to any of her jacks if she can at all mind it. So I think Wrong Eye and Snapjaw is a really good match for her.
Okay. Yeah, usually it seems like Crix player instead of taking something like that, would just take more Banes, right? Like that's kind of like always the answer is like, well, I could take this one heavy, but more Banes.
More Banes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to play with Bane Thralls with the UA, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with doing that. They hit really hard. They have some good defensive tech. Um, but it just felt like it was taking up a little bit too much space on the board.
Mhm.
It's a finesse list, and it requires that things be spaced out so that other things can kind of slink past them. You've got like Warwick Sirens and Pistol Wraiths and Dougal that needs to be positioned really well. So Wrong and Snapjaw, they're the anchor. They're generally played in the centre of the board, fairly close to Denegra, so that they're a threat.
Yeah. I mean, coming from a Signar background, it definitely makes something that's more of a threat to Signar because Norma's like, okay, you take more Banes, whatever. Gun mages just keep on shooting. But all of a sudden, all those shooty elements just do not work whatsoever against Wrong Eye and Snapjaw. And all of a sudden, we have to be hanging way back from them because, they can just put on the Animus and charge on forward. And then if we all get engaged, we just can't do anything. And it just shuts them down. So that's, I mean, for the anti-Signar, it's a key piece as opposed to having just another unit of Banes type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And playing against Signar is sort of the prime concern, really, as a quick player, because the Signar matchup is so difficult.
Mm.
Scar is, my usual drop into Signar, but hey, sometimes, you might be list locked, you might feel like, oh, this is, I need to save or I need to play Denny. And Wrong Eye and Snapjaw, I mean, they're just a great piece in that, most lists that you play against are going to have some shooting that is good at taking off heavies, and they completely ignore that. And for 9 points, I think it's an absolute steal because you're getting probably a 3 point solo, and Snapjaw is like a 6 point war beast. I mean, come on, he's at least like an 8 point war beast.
Well, you get that removed from play too, right? Like that's another great part of him as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A bit of RFP never hurts.
Mhm. Well, I think I gotta say, I mean, just the best of luck to you at SmogCon, and hopefully, you come out with some sort of trophy or something, But well, I think I have to cut off now, and then when you come back, absolutely, we'll have to, do an after report type thing, seeing how it all went, and the stories of victory and the stories of woe, and
I think
talking
I'm
about
more
the
likely
Signar
to
you
come back
killed.
with alcohol poisoning than the trophy, but we'll see. I'm optimistic. You've always got to be, haven't you? And thanks a lot for having me on. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm more than happy to come back. Perhaps in a couple of weeks' time and evaluate.
Awesome. So for those watching, again, thanks for watching, and just post down below what you painted, or what type of things you think about the stuff we've been talking about, and we'll catch you next time. So see you then. Bye.
Adios.